Welcome back. Today we're talking about air guns, and I want to stress an important message. Please, if you attempt this, be very, very careful what you're doing. In fact, I would only attempt this if you know exactly what you're doing when it comes to air and things that are under pressure, and you understand the dangers and what you're getting involved in, because after all, things like this could explode if you don't do it right, and you can very easily injure yourself very badly or even kill yourself. So I can't stress enough, be very careful if you do attempt this, because after all, I can tell you not to attempt it, and chances are you might just anyway. So with that, let's take a look at what I got here. Now, at one point I was looking at a lot of videos on YouTube about how to make pretty much anything, and one of the things I came across was how to make a potato gun. And while I never really fully built a big one, I have actually built a smaller one. And how I came across the plans to build this, and actually there wasn't really any plans, I kind of just came up with the idea kind of a little on my own after seeing someone else's idea, basically. I don't know if that makes much sense, but what they used was one of these air hammer arresters, and basically there's a valve inside here on a spring, and the valve opens up every time there's too much pressure in the line, and it just kind of shoots open, and that spring absorbs that pressure surge, and that way you don't have that effect on the faucet where you get that slamming effect and everything. And when you use this with air, it kind of acts like an air reservoir. So when this charges up, the air pressure opens up that valve and just allows this to fill up, and that spring compresses. And then when you open this up to relieve it, it shoots forward, because at that point the pressure of the spring is greater, and you get kind of like a little extra boost. It's kind of neat, and it makes a neat sound. But what you could do is with this stick, you could take little pieces of potato or whatever if you want, and make your own custom projectile basically, and just ram this down here, and then when you want, you can just pull this forward and it fires, and it's pretty impressive the sound it makes. I should fire up my compressor and show you. Now, one thing to mention about this is originally when I built it, I had one of the female connectors, and that would be the piece that this clips into on here, and I used one of these adapter pieces on the end of the hose to basically fill this up and then disconnect it. That way I can actually use this as a portable piece, just like this, like a one shot, one kill basically, if you want to call it that. I mean, it fires pretty good if you get it cranked up to, I wouldn't go past 90 psi. I know the pipes are rated higher than that, and I'm sure you could, but I wouldn't suggest going higher than that. I mean, even that's really high. But anyway, you can get a piece, to fly pretty far. I've actually shot some pretty neat stuff with it, but I can't really do too much with it here. Oops, sorry about that. The rod, actually, if you get pieces of wood like this, you can actually put them in here and perhaps sharpen it like a dart and shoot it at a target, like a hay bale maybe, with the paper target on the front of it. It might go in. You might have to put some fins on the end of it, maybe up here at the end of the barrel. I haven't tried that. That could be something interesting. The other big guy here is not a finished project, and that's what the main kind of focus of this video is going to be, I guess. This is something my brother started piecing together years ago and actually gave me as a Christmas present, and we couldn't find a barrel for it, and this is meant to actually fire BBs. The back part over here, and since it's not finished, we're not sure this is the final orientation. I've actually done more work with it since he's given it to me, but it's just been sitting here. Let me start off by saying how this works. Basically, the bigger tubes down here in the bottom are all connected to each other, and they act as an air reservoir. You would connect this to an air source here, it would fill up with air. We need to get a small hose to connect from here up to here, and then basically what happens is you unscrew this little screw back here that's off camera and fill this with BBs. And the idea is there's going to be a metal barrel of some sort, and it's just a piece of pipe basically, but it has to be just big enough where the little BBs can fit into and roll down easily, but not too much, because you need some kind of resistance, I guess, on the walls for the air pressure to build up behind and shoot them out. And that barrel is going to run the entire length of the gun up here to the end. And I'll show you the barrel work that he did on this, which is pretty impressive. But anyway, once you fill it up, you put the screw back on. The hose connects here, obviously, like I said. And then once you pull this trigger, which is simply just a blowgun, it would fire. And I also put a a gauge on here. Now, what I did was, well, I mentioned the gauge. I put that on. I put the air piece here, and I managed to figure out this would be the best way to do it with the air, connection. Now, he hasn't, unfortunately, figured out that part and the barrel, so I got a little step ahead, but that's where it lies. Now, the other piece up here, which is just a handle, this was actually filled up with washers. I did that too, just to give it a little bit of weight and make it feel better in the hand, I guess you could say. And unfortunately, it broke off because I only had it hot glued on the outside just for looks, and I didn't really account for stability when I first did it. I don't know why, but I might have to put 2 brackets up here because this piece of wood is very well glued on there. Or either that, just really try hard to break it off, or worst case scenario, just sacrifice that pipe section and put a new one on. I mean, I haven't really figured out that part yet, but I have to do something to get that more secure. So this is meant you could hold it this way. This also can be flipped the other way around and be fired the opposite way. So you're holding it, on the bottom instead of on top. Only problem with that is the air piece is up here instead of on the other side. So unless they put another one on the other side, which isn't a bad idea, so then you have one for filling, you don't have to disconnect the hose, or just connect the hose directly to it. I have to get there, figure that part out. This is just held in, by the way. I put this in and then gently screwed it in, and it tapped it out. It helped to heat it up a little bit too. And then I put some liquid pipe sealant on there and just screwed it in, and it definitely is airtight. It will hold pressure. I'll show you up close. This is work that he did with a Dremel, which is just, I think, amazing. It looks really cool, like it's one of those heat absorbent barrels, which is really cool. And considering that somebody sat there and just hand carved that out was really neat. Also, this is white pipe, as evident by one of the ends here where I started cutting the labels off, because they're a little proud, and I wanted this to have a smooth finish, so I just cut them with a knife, and I'm going to kind of sand this a little. But anyway, this was colored with a marker. He just sat there and colored the entire thing. I don't know if you'll see inside of it or not, but there is a spot here where it is white inside here, and because you can only get so far with the marker. I thought that was pretty cool. But we have to get a piece of metal, a metal rod of some sort. It's obviously a tube or some pipe or anything like that that's big enough for a BB, and it has to go all the way through here from this piece here, and actually extend further than that, because it has to come in from this nut, and it has to have a flared end on the very end of it, because it has to make sealant, and this has to get all sealed up too, obviously, somehow. This actually was sitting out here for a while and got all funky, so I had to clean it before I did this video, but something decided they can crawl in there and live in there, so this thing had some kind of funky thing living in it, who knows what. But another thing that happened, when he originally built this, these ends were even, and what happened was, on this piece he decided to drill a hole and mount a tire fill for your tires, like one of those Schrader valves, and it just couldn't seal right because of the angle it was on, so I had to cut the pipe as close as I could, which ended up being like right at the end of the collar here, and just fit a new cap on the end. So unfortunately it's uneven, but I don't know, I kind of think it just gives it a unique look. Also, the piece he used on the end here when he made this, you can see this is just a conventional elbow, but this elbow here has a smaller end on it to fit into the other pipe, so that made that nice and tight. But you could have actually put 2 elbows with a short piece of pipe if you really wanted to, do that, but this is definitely a quicker way to do it. But yeah, so we had to figure out a barrel. I have to order one, or find one online, or find one close by. We've tried looking all in the local shops, but I couldn't find anything really. I'll have to look again. I have to figure out how to attach this, and have to figure out how to, get this kind of together. I was thinking some kind of a band, but we have to have the barrel first, like I said, because that's going to be measured the length of here, maybe stand a little bit out the end, and then that way we can just unscrew this, pass it through, maybe get it pulled nice and tight and sealed into place and just let it go on its own. And then that way we can slide this through and maybe make them an independent piece. That way this can actually be slid. Maybe we can put it over on the side. You know, there's a variety of different places to put it. This is just an adapter piece on the end of this. That's how it's able to screw in. It was pretty easy to make this. I'll show you real quick just by holding it up. Maybe without the barrel on it, because it's kind of clumsy. But you can see how that would look without, you know, underneath. So you can actually put it like this, and maybe we can put some kind of extension on it to kind of mount to your arm nicely. And then that other rod up here would kind of come around this area here, so you'd hold this like a forward grip. That'd be kind of neat. So you see I have gloves on. I'm actually working on another project. If you haven't seen it, it's right here. This is a EVA foam gun. I'm shooting 2 videos simultaneously, so this video for this one should be around here somewhere with the other videos you're watching now. If not, it'll be, maybe I'll put it down in the description below if I remember. But anyway, that's what got me thinking about these other pieces here. Now that's a cosplay weapon, it's non-functional, but it is getting painted. That's why I have gloves. So I'm actually going to take some of these pieces and paint them today, right now, since I have paint out and it's not a bad day for painting. And I can do that because I don't really know where we're going to get the barrel yet, but everything can be painted without it, and this can get mounted to that plate without it. So we can get this gun pretty far done today, as far as I can without the barrel, obviously. So I'll have to figure that part out, but I'm going to go ahead and tape these pieces off here, tape this off, tape this off. Obviously unscrew this, or we'll see. Yeah, I'm going to unscrew this because this will get a different finish. Now, what kind of paint am I going to paint this? Well, obviously I think I'm just going to first paint it black just to cover up all the stuff on here. The marker job is really nice, but you know, there's parts where it's rubbing off and it needs to get cleaned up. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that up. And like I said, I'm going to sand some stuff on here, but I'll keep you updated as this comes along. What you're looking at now is a contraption that I made up for my shopsmith to allow me to hold pipe in. And all this is a piece of, I believe, 3/4 inch plywood that I cut and mounted 2 pieces of molding that have this kind of rounded edge on. So when you take a piece of pipe like this and you lay it in here, you can center things on it and drill straight through, which is handy. I keep saying I will do a video on this shopsmith at some point. I picked this up on Craigslist on a trade, and it's been pretty good to me, and it's pretty old. So it'd be nice to do a video on this. But what I need to do is actually position this other piece of plywood that I have this screwed into, and I have to move it so I can get this exactly where I want it, and then I have to clamp this down, since I don't really have any other way of doing that. You know, keeping it steady, I should say. And the reason why I'm going to drill into this is because I have to make a little pilot hole. I found a piece of bracket. This was actually a heat sink, so it's aluminum, I guess. And I'm going to drill a couple holes into this so we can mount it. And I have the other piece off camera here. And the idea is I'm going to take this, and the end of it here has this little flange that's going to grab onto the end of the piece of wood to keep it stable. This is going to get drilled in and attached with either a self-tapping screw or some other way. It also have, you know, our customary hot glue, because why not? And then this is going to get attached behind it here, and then there's going to be another hole up here, and that's going to screw in. So it's going to have a mechanical bond as well as you know, a glue bond between there. I don't have another bracket, or else I would put it on the other side. If I do come across one, I'll repeat the technique on the other side as well. But this is what I came up with what I have here just lying around in my shed. So I'm going to go ahead and get that cut. I do have to do a couple adjustments on this. Unfortunately, I can only go so far down with the adjustment here, so I have to actually move the table up, and the only way to do that is by picking it up. Actually, I just have to loosen this clamp over here. You have to get underneath it and brace it, because it is kind of heavy, and you can weasel it up right where you want it, and then you got to tighten this in before it falls, and that should be able to get, yeah, I can get a drill bit right where I want. I'm not going all the way through it, I'm just going enough in. If I can go all the way through it, I should have long enough screws that I can actually put a nut all the way through. but it's not necessary. I just need to get a little pilot hole, and I might even use that to hold this too, so I can drill the holes in this. But I'm going to head and cut and get the parts done like that. Okay, I got the holes drilled in there, one on each face, and I also drilled a little pilot hole over here, and I'm going to take that, line it up, put a self-tapping screw which will, you know, bite that nicely, and I'm also going to put another one over here and screw that into the wood that I have on the barrel piece over here off camera, and that'll little corner there will either the front or the back. I'll figure out which is best. And like I said, I'll get the hot glue gun heated up, and we'll put down a dab of hot glue first, just to, you know, keep it in position before I drill it in. And I think that should hold nicely. Certainly better than just hot glue alone. I elongated one of the holes so I can adjust this bracket just to make sure it gets right down onto the wood. And I also hit this with a file just to get the burrs off of it, so it's actually nice and smooth. And here's the result of our efforts. You can see the bracket at the end there is butted up nicely against the piece of wood. We have a self-tapping screw over here, actually hot glue still wet, and we have a conventional wood screw down there at the bottom, just a short one, and that holds nicely. I did have to put a bunch of glue down the back and behind it just to hold it in place, obviously. And yeah, it would benefit from definitely having another bracket. Hopefully I can find something around and I can, like I said, mirror the same thing on this side. But that's going to hold it for now, and pretty well. I could actually put something on the side here, maybe if I even want to, I can wrap tape around here, like some kind of gaffer's tape or something strong. That may work as well. But either way, it's going to hold, and I'm going to go ahead and spray this, because this is actually the last piece to paint. I had the other ones outside drying, and I'll come back in just a few minutes. It's been a couple days since I touched this project last, and I've had a chance to put a couple coats of paint on it. Unfortunately, I ran out of the specific paint I was using, and there's a couple spots I have to touch up that I won't be able to do until I get another can of paint. Fortunately though, I was able to dip the handle part here in Plasta Dip, and some other pieces I did as well while I had it out. I just did a single coat. Unfortunately, the drip the pieces at the end here I had to cut off because they were just too big. But it's fine. This is going to stick out the bottom. I've determined I'm going to put that downward like that, because simply you can hide this piece of wood better when it's actually in between the other pipes, more so than it's out in the open. I also went ahead and put a little bit of black Plasta Dip on the end of the trigger here. It originally was dipped in blue. I guess it's still Plasta Dip. It's probably the industrial coating. That way it just does a little bit of color coding, and also fills it in a little bit better on the end over here, so it's not so hollow. The plug is also has been done. I have that over here. I just taped it to the end of the rod I was using for the gun project. And then we have the barrel. Obviously I taped off the pieces that need to get taped off. All in all, it came out pretty damn good. There are some spots, unfortunately, right here, as you can see, where it was resting up against the cardboard. What I did was just sprayed the bottom first, and then I laid it down after it was dry to the touch, at least an hour. Unfortunately, it wasn't dry enough to handle and actually rest against something, so I do have these marks. Again, it's on the bottom, not a huge deal. This isn't a perfect piece anyway. You can see there's a couple blemishes that were here from before I painted it anyway. That just adds character. I will eventually pick up another can of paint, so it won't be such a big deal. That's really all I wanted to highlight now at this point. Now, I did actually talk to my brother. He called me the day I was filming one of the videos, or one of the segments of this video, and tells me that I can get that barrel that I need from McMaster Car. So of course I went on to their website and did a quick little search online, of course, to see what size a standard ball bearing is, and it's 0.177 of an inch. You can get barrels that are 0.178 from there, which is just a tad tight. I mean, it would probably work, but that's cutting it close for tolerances. So I'm going to go ahead and play around on their website and see if I can find one that's exactly the right diameter. And I'll have to order that, And I'll also have to get some kind of a small hose piece to connect from up here and wrap around the bottom to where that pipe's going to come out. Let me actually just pause the footage here real quick and just kind of slap these together here on the bench so we can see what it looks like. And this is basically what the final assembly will look like. You can see we have the barrel set on top of the air tanks. Start to take the tape off of the other pieces. I'd left it on there just in case I want to do some further touch up. But yeah, this is going to have the steel tube in it. The back piece here is the chamber that the ball bearings will store in. This actually just has to get moved up a little bit like that so it's even. And you can see we just have the little plug at the end. Obviously the threads weren't painted because I want them to be able to be screwed in and out. I mentioned the top up here has to have the hose that's going to get wrapped around to the bottom here. The trigger kind of sits up here if you could see it, so you can hold it in your hand and squeeze it. And then of course here's your forward grip. I'll have to actually get the tripod set up during the daytime and show you how this looks in the hand, but I have to figure out how to get this attached first. So like I said, we're going to do a little recap on this. Only thing I have to do now is get a barrel. We're going to most likely order that from McMaster Car. There's really no place local to get that. I want to get another can of paint, do whatever touch up needs to get done. When the barrel comes, we're going to attach it by flaring out one of the ends. Obviously we have to make sure this hole is centered with this hole here, that you can see the one in the end right here. These I think are centered. This one for some reason I don't think it is. If it's not centered, I probably will have to rebuild this section, no big deal. If it is centered, then we're good to go. Only thing I have to do, like I said, flare the end out, take this nut off, pass the entire barrel through this hole, through that piece, all the way to the end of that piece. When it gets to the end of the flare, seal it somehow. I'm not sure how yet. Maybe some kind of heat sealing, or I'm really not sure. We'll have to figure that part out when I get to it. And then figure out a way to make these two pieces connect to each other so they're nice and rigid to prevent that pipe from breaking in between here. And then attach this whole assembly to these air tanks. Maybe wrap it around somehow. That's what I have left. I can't really do much more with this tonight, obviously, because I don't have any more parts. So this video was intended to be just kind of an introductory thing. Speaking of introductory, I'll also introduce the other piece that we were looking at. Only thing I did on this was just paint the little tip. And the only reason why I should say plastic dip the tip. Only reason why it wasn't the full piece here is because I actually poured the plastic dip out into a smaller container. And when I got done doing the other stuff, there wasn't enough to dip this all the way in, so that's going to have to get redone too. But the main focus of this particular video was that air gun there. So stay tuned for part 2 whenever that comes. It's probably going to be a few weeks because this is a little bit of a low priority project right now, since I do have some others on the workbench that have to get taken care of that are obviously more high priority. But yeah, this will be something that'll definitely be done hopefully in a little while. I do have some other ideas for this, like a strap so you can hang it around your actual shoulder, so you don't have to carry it, because it's not light. It's not heavy, but it's not light either. Other things we can do is maybe put some kind of a sight system or a laser pointer. That'd be pretty cool. Some kind of a big laser pointer at the end of it. Green laser pointer. Yeah. But that's it. That's all I have for this particular video. I want to thank you for watching as always. If you have any suggestions for future videos, or maybe a suggestion of what I could do with this particular one or this particular one, please leave that in the description or in the comments below. In the description below, if I can find it, I'll give you the link to the original guy that we found online who built this and this one. But that's going to be a wild goose chase if I do find it. Also, I mentioned earlier in the video, because I saw it in the footage when I copied it off the camera, that I mentioned I was going to fire up the air compressor, load it up with air, and then fire this. And I have not done that in this video. So expect a either follow-up video or a separate video on its own of just this particular gun being fired. And with that, thanks for watching.